Very much for staying with us on NTV. Joining me now live from Mombasa County is the Senate Minority Leader James Orengo to give insight into the politics that surrounds the infamous handshake on this anniversary. Mr. Orengo, thanks very much for joining us. Now, the handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga was in essence a public declaration to cease hostilities, unite the nation, restore the economy and heal political divisions. 3 years on, has it achieved what you thought it would?
Well, thank you for having me. If you go back memory lane and think of the position in this country on the 30th of January 2018, the country was torn apart. We had a situation where the previous year, Uhuru Kenyatta had been sworn in as the President of the Republic of Kenya. And on that day, Raila Amolo Odinga was also sworn as President of the Republic of Kenya. We had a Venezuelan situation occurring in Kenya, where you had, for purposes of having a better word, two persons legitimately claiming the office of the presidency of the Republic of Kenya. I think, no doubt, it was an act of statesmanship for the two leaders to find a way of trying to resolve the problem that was confronting the country at that time, which was partly political violence and also how the country was going to move forward. It is without a doubt that Kenya would be in a Venezuelan situation, or even what is happening in the state of Haiti, because of constant conflict between warring parts of the state and political parties. So on account of peace, and I've had people talking to you, the viewers talking to you, talking to your station, the overall assessment of what has happened since that time is that it was a good deal, good for the country, and although there are challenges, but imagine that that did not take place. Kenya would be in a worse situation than it is today.
Well, how would you describe the strength of that handshake today, 3 years on?
The strength of that handshake is because, the two leaders are a working relationship. That working relationship has concretized by the formation of a task force that collected views from Kenyans, and the end product has been the report that resulted in the drafting of the Constitutional Kenya Amendment Bill and a series of implementing or enabling legislation which will come after the referendum. Secondly, you can see the working relationship in the Houses of Parliament. I think without that handshake, again, go back 2 years before then, the acrimony, the noise that was taking place in both houses, people fighting within the floor of the House, people tearing each other, tearing their clothes, fighting in the galleries. I think nobody in his senses would say that nothing positive has happened since that handshake took place. And the economists have talked to us, people from international institutions, and they are saying in the period between 2016, around November, right up to the beginning of the year 2018, Kenya's economy was on a downward trend. The economy was not performing well, and subsequent to the handshake, things took a different turn, except when, at the beginning of last year, we were confronted with this new beast called coronavirus.
All right, indeed.
This is yes.
Your sentiments over the weekend, however, suggest that all is not well. You came across as agitated, perhaps unhappy. You stated that there are certain individuals at Harambee House who are out to derail ODM and also sabotage Raila Odinga. Mr. Orengo, who are these individuals that are threatening the handshake? Can you name them?
No, let me put the case clear. I think some people didn't get my point. And the two leaders have stated it very clearly, that the handshake is not about 2022. The handshake is about accomplishing the report about the BBI and the legislation surrounding the Building Bridges initiative. Now, some people unwittingly or in their own sense of what they thought was right for the country, had taken this process to be something that they could use in talking about 2022, trying to build scenarios about 2022. And I can tell you, our experience after the electoral violence in the year 2007, when there was an intervention by the international community, you could see the harmony that was created when President Kibaki was working with Raila Odinga. And it is important that the construct of the Constitution, as it is, or as is going to be amended, that civilian authority must be subject to the authority of elected leaders. So I was telling Harambee House that they should stop it, because we have had that experience before, where Parliament was subject to the same Harambee House. And it was just a reminder that they should keep to their lane, and the politicians should keep to their lane. And the players, including civil society, should also have a role to play.
All right, I'll just interject there, Mr. Orengo, and ask you once more, who are these individuals that you are referring to? Who in Harambee House?
No, I mean, the names have been mentioned, and I would say the head of Interior, the Principal Secretary, were feeling that he should let go the Secretariat running the BBI initiative, that we had two leaders appointed, not by anybody, by the two leaders, Honorable Junaid Mohammed and Honorable Waweru, to steer this phase of the Building Bridges initiative. And it's not a secret that, that initiative is now not being run from the Secretariat.
So you are referring to Karanja Kibicho, the Principal Secretary for Interior?
Yes, with whom have a very good relationship, but I'm saying many times people go off their lane, and my statement was about him coming back to his lane.
And if he doesn't come back to his lane, as you put it, then what? Would you want him out, since you are alluding to the fact on your part that he's stirring the waters?
No, I think there have been interventions, and I think we are now good to go. I think that word has gone around that, the handshake is intact, but how we manage the process is critical. And the Constitution as it exists today gives authority to elected leaders to whom the sovereign, the people, have delegated certain powers. The civil service have got a particular role to play, but political processes should remain political processes. And
who do you believe that PS Kibicho is getting his instructions from?
No, I don't want to speculate. That is a hypothetical question. But I think the two principles have been very clear on the role everybody should play, and that's why they appointed the Secretariat. They have also been very clear on, not mixing issues. BBI should not be a training ground or a rehearsal for 2022. And I think that one is got a clear position from both principles. So I think it's a question where people are not keeping to their lane, and they should keep to their lane.
All right, you have mentioned, though, that you think some form of action has been taken, but do you trust the Jubilee Party? And a sort of turnaround question. Do you think that the Jubilee Party trusts the ODM party? Is there trust between the two?
There is extreme trust if you just, examine and determine the working relationship of the two parties in Parliament, both the Senate and in the National Assembly. We are making decisions with consultations, passing or rejecting bills on the basis of those consultations. At the executive level, I think we are being consulted, although we are not part of government. But where it is necessary for us to get briefings to enable us, effectively to undertake the work of legislation, that is certainly, taking place.
All right, we've seen plenty of rallies taking place. Do you think in the near future we're likely to see joint campaigns between President Uhuru Kenyatta and also Raila Odinga?
Well, if you have not seen them before, I would remind you that they have made appearances in many parts of this country, including Kisii, in Kisumu, in Kakamega, at the coast, and the message has been the same. But I think now that the county assemblies have, or the majority of county assemblies have passed the bill, and subsequent to the approval by both houses of parliament, the Senate and the National Assembly, and the whole project goes to the people, I think that is then the opportunity for them now to come out more openly, because their participation was also subject to these essential steps: the approval by the county assemblies, and subsequently the approval by Parliament.
And what is it that took place on Sunday? Because we were expecting to hear then from the principals.
No, I think on Sunday there was a lot of things which was running the media which was not true. I personally was up country, and when I came back that morning, the hype that was being played about that rally in Kibra was completely false. The agenda for that rally, which was an ODM rally, was for purposes of reorganizing the party, talking about the party, and on the question of the elections, and then to continue to carry the message of the BBI to our followers and the residents of Kibra, which is what happened. And it was well presented by the chairman of ODM in Nairobi, Mr. Honorable Aladwa. But all of us, I was in Nairobi, and I was not expected to attend that rally. I didn't make an attempt to go to that rally because I knew the agenda of the rally had nothing to do with what people were talking about in the media. It's just like today, there was supposed to be a meeting of the head of the political parties.
Right.
And in the media, people are talking about a crisis meeting. There was never a meeting today that was planned as a crisis meeting. It was a meeting that was planned much earlier, and it was a meeting of the political leaders who had met with the head of state and Honorable Raila Odinga about 10 days ago.
All right, let me bring in the NASA partners now, who seem to have moved on. There have been strides made in securing Kabuchai and Matungu in the just recently concluded by-elections. Are you worried?
No, we are not worried. We're not worried at all. And by-elections, sometimes you get some of these results. And I have many elections I can point to. And recently we were celebrating an election in Wendani, where somebody who is a resident of that ward was elected in Jubilee Party, but he comes from my constituency, back at home in Siaya. We have had our wins. Jubilee has had its wins. ANC has had its wins, and so has Ford Kenya. And I suppose that the Wiper Party has also going to get its wins. These are by-elections. They should not be seen in the context of the major context which is going to come in 2022.
All right,
but,
I'll just...
but I think, you would realize that despite what has happened, the NASA leadership, which was there before and continues to work together. They continue to meet together as heads of political parties, together with Raila Amolo Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta.
All right. I just want to take us back to what you said at the weekend, that there are individuals that need to be put back in their lane. For you to have spoken publicly about this did show some degree of frustration, perhaps. If ODM is, say, pushed to the wall or continues to be frustrated by Jubilee, at any point, is there a likelihood that ODM could, in fact, team up with Deputy President William Ruto?
Well, you could as well ask if Trump and Hillary Clinton will ever work together. I think we're worlds apart. It's a game of politics. Nothing is impossible. But I think in terms of the basic issues, like the BBI, like things to do with corruption, things to do with inclusivity, things to do with abiding by the constitution of the country, those basic principles, I think if we would have seen some semblance of commitment to those principles by the party of the deputy president, one would think about it. But looking at the whole thing, I don't think there are any principles that can get us together to work together.
All right, and just as we close, Kenyans are particularly concerned about 2022, especially with the just gone by-elections and the state of our politics. We're seeing the president and the deputy president disagree. We're seeing rifts in other political areas as well. What are your sentiments as a leader here in Kenya, and what perhaps are your parting words to Kenyans who are genuinely worried about the upcoming elections?
I think it's a worrying trend, and we should, instead of just worrying and engage in lamentations, we should think of solutions. And the BBI squarely on the question of inclusivity and the question of free and fair elections, and on the question of violence and security. If those issues can be dealt with, I think we can have a peaceful elections in the year 2022. But it will be important that there's commitment to those basic principles. I do not see why the Deputy President, as the principal assistant to the President of the Republic of Kenya, and unless he walks out of the cabinet when the government is involved in a major project, if I may call the BBI as a project, that he would cause so much dysfunction in government by taking quite a different line from the president to whom he owes allegiance under the Constitution. But, you know, that is politics, and I think the water is going to settle. And I just want to add, in conclusion, and what I want to tell Kenyans from the bottom of my heart, that if people have to think about 2022, we have to think about where we have come from. And there is a danger that those who slept with the authoritarian government that was in place until the year 2002, when we had really the first free and fair elections. Those who went to bed with those who were against the constitutional reform that we experienced in 2010,
right,
that those same people who bear the birthmarks of the Moi and Kanu state will be sitting at the front table hoping that, you know, they're the ones who are going to drive this agenda in the future. I think this is something that Kenyans should think about seriously. I think as this discussion goes on, we need to see reformers in this debate, and we need to see people who have truly fought for change in Kenya engage in this discussion.
All right, James Orengo, I'm afraid we're out of time, but thanks very much for that insight. Closing remarks there. Senate Minority Leader saying that things are on course. Some individuals from Harambee House need to come back into line. And the Deputy President has caused dysfunction in the government. Thanks so much for joining us on this third anniversary of the handshake, coming to us live from Mombasa County. Senate Minority Leader James Orengo. We've got to take a quick break on NTV tonight. Do stay with us. I'll be back with the business news.